So thank you, everyone, and I hope we will manage for the next hour to stay in the room. Before starting with the questions, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have two people representing two cities, and I would like to ask to apologize for not telling the surnames, only the first names for a Greek person. So Tanja is here from the city of Copenhagen. She's a planner. She's been working in the freight domain in the city of Copenhagen for over 12 years now, and many new projects. And we have Richard, also from a city, urban traffic planner as well. When I was reading your title, Richard, I was expecting an older person. I'm very happy to see that young people are involved in these activities in the city of Rotterdam. Richard was also, when I was reading a short paragraph, he's committed to working for making Rotterdam the most innovative port in the world, and I suppose you have already contributed to making the city of Rotterdam a leading city in zero emissions. Is that right? And the other two panelists are from the industry, if I can say so. Sorry. Régis. He is involved, he's from the construction domain. He's a construction expert, has been involved in for more than 15 years in the industrial and construction companies. And as a consultant, you support companies in optimizing their supply chain. And you've been involved in the Success project that we heard this morning. And our fourth panelist, also, let's say, representing industry, but a domain that is also very critical, as we've heard earlier today, 3PL logistics provider. So May is a CSR manager in SEUR, right? This is a Spanish leader transport company. And you've also worked there since 2006, involved in many innovative projects, both European and national projects related to urban logistics. So before I go with the questions, I'd like to give each of our panelists a few minutes to say a bit more about themselves and explain the activities they've been involved and the projects they've been involved in this domain and relevant to our session today. So is it okay if we start? Yes, with Tanja. Tanja, thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Tanja Ballhorn from the city of Copenhagen. I've been involved in novelog-project or we have, as the city of Copenhagen, have been involved in the novelog-project as a case city. And we had to collect the data, and we also had to to establish a freight network and making scenarios for the new SULP that we're going to do. We're not going to make a SULP, we are going to integrate the SULP in our new SULP. That was the main focus area that we did in the novelog project.
But Tanja, apart from the novelog project, have you been involved in other urban logistics projects in the city of Copenhagen?
Yeah. We have been working with freight since we established the low emission zone back in 2006. And after that, we are the city of cyclists in Copenhagen. So actually every time we have a deadly accident with a bike and a truck, it creates newspaper headlines. So we were starting actually in 2009, and we made the first SULP, actually, action plan for freight logistics in the city of Copenhagen. And that was really a harsh process because cities at that time was not really working with freight. So we were going, and thanks to Mike, we had the strategy in the city of Copenhagen because he really helped us a lot. And then we created a business case for city logistic, and the city of Copenhagen created the business case, and then we put it out to the marketing. It's still up and runs, so it's a good business right now. And we also work with off-hour delivery. That's one of the outcome also of the novelog-project. Yeah.
Interesting to hear that the outcome of a project funded by you has already been integrated in policies.
Yeah, we are waiting right now for the guidelines. We want to have national guidelines for off-hour deliveries in all cities. We have made 5 different pilots successfully, and then we want to give it. We want to have some guidelines.
Okay, some more questions on that will follow. So, Richard, your turn.
Yes, I'm Richard van der Wulp from the city of Rotterdam. I coordinate everything we do on freight, and especially urban freight. Rotterdam is, of course, the largest port in Europe, of course. About 25% of all the goods going into Europe is going via Rotterdam. But as I said, most of my work is on city logistics. Out of these 4 projects, we are part of CityLab. Together with PostNL and TNO, we work on pilots within the living lab concept. Well, our efforts on city logistics are diverse. Our goals are diverse, but we started out with the goal of air quality, a particular problem in Rotterdam, and still is. So our aim in Rotterdam and other cities in the Netherlands is going to zero-emission city logistics, and we're making great steps in that.
Thank you. And I have a question for you on that, but I will wait for afterwards. Yes, please.
Okay, hello everybody. So Régis Fontaine. So me, as you said before, I work in the past for the industry and also construction sectors, and we can see today a very big gap between the construction and the industry in terms of maturity in the supply chain. So in the Success project in which I was involved, we made different business models to see how we can improve the supply chain in the construction sector, and at the same time reduce the negative impacts on the urban environment. So we work mainly on the CCC solutions that we talked about previously, and we evaluate and to see what will be the best business model for the future of the company in the construction field.
Thank you. And May?
First of all, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure for us to be here. Maybe the only one operator with... Okay, SEUR is the first transport company in Spain. And we are part of DPD Group, that is the second operator in the courier, express and parcel industry market in Europe. So for us, to be here, it's a message about our commitment with the sustainable mobility solutions and with the smart sustainable mobility. And we have the experience in Spain with a lot of projects. For example, we were part of the Freeview project. In fact, thanks to this project, we cooperate with the Madrid City Council and establish this cooperation that everybody speaks during the day. So for us, it was a very nice project that helped us to know the advantages and disadvantages of this type of solutions. And currently we are CityLab followers, so maybe this shows our commitment with smart urban solutions, because we know that we have an effect in the cities and we want to be a solution of this problem too.
Thank you. So we have stakeholders from, or let's say representatives from the different stakeholders here today. But as the first topic in question, I would like a bit to address the speech of Ian before. Ian, you raised various policy issues and aspects that should be addressed by the various cities in Europe and elsewhere. And it's it's not really easy. So we've all been involved in innovative projects. We have been able to measure the impact of these projects in our domain, but living, let's say, this stage where you run a project to seeing something implemented at the city level, integrated in the policy and the strategy of a city is a different question. So I would like to ask whether, and we are really lucky, I would say today, to have representatives from 2 cities in Europe that they are doing really well in that domain. So I would like to ask you, if you could specifically give us some practical, let's say, examples or aspects, or help us be more optimistic whether we're going to see these urban logistics projects more integrated in the planning of the cities and their strategies. I think, Tanja, you said before that in the novelog-project you already anticipate that some of the outcomes of the project will start being integrated in the planning of the city. But to what extent do you expect that to happen? How easy is that to happen? And should we anticipate to see this integration of innovative urban logistics projects in other cities in Europe?
Yeah.
Was it a difficult question?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I think, first of all, when you do new pilot projects, it's stakeholder engagement and stakeholder engagement, and again and again and again. I think, and that takes so long time, huh? To have the same picture in the public authorities' head as in the private sectors. Huh? But when you look at the business cases, and you find the business cases can be good for companies as well. Off-hour delivery in the pilots in Copenhagen, it's fantastic business. So actually, it's not so difficult to sell in. They have to change their habits, but actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but they also have strong CSR, or they have ambitious CSR strategies. So when you look at the CSR strategies and you look at the city, the aims of the city and the goal of the city, you actually can find, you can combine them on CSR, on emissions and so on. So it's not so difficult, you just have to find the right way in. Because if they have to, the pilots in Copenhagen with off-hour delivery, it was really a success. They have, they can gain money on it. They have to invest in new vehicles and they have to invest in new equipment and so on. But in the end of the day, it's a good business.
But
we are winning, they are winning, everybody is winning. Of course, when you're talking about regulations, hardcore regulations, then it's no win-win, huh? But it's easy to find the win-win situations, and then it's really easy to collaborate too, huh?
But do you suggest that the initiative should come from industrial partners, or should it be the city who takes the initiative and integrates some policies in their strategies and planning, and invites the industrial partners to participate or to support these initiatives?
Yeah, but believe it or not, but we have our friends with the business. We have created now the stakeholder platform, and we can. It took time, but we can talk honest and freely, and with the respect, and it's really. So when we talk, we don't talk about emissions. Maybe we talk about money, and then it's more easy to have people on board.
Richard, what's your experience from Rotterdam in that domain?
Yes, I find it very important, a collaboration with other partners. In City Lab, we developed, together with TNO, the Living Lab approach. And yeah, that's the basis of everything we do on the subject, working together with all the stakeholders, as Ian also described. In about 2011, we joined a European project called EcoStars, a recognition scheme which also started in the UK. And luckily we learned that because it's a way in for us as a government, an easy way in to get connected with the industry. And it helped us from that time on to develop a whole scheme, a whole network of collaborations on different pilots and different projects with all kind of transport companies. And it helped us also in the last years to develop the first steps to get in contact with the buyers and the suppliers, because as one of the slides of Ian said, the transport companies just do what they are asked to do. So if you find the one who delivers the questions, you can influence even more. And for example, another project we do is ByZ, running European project, where we are thinking together with different kind of organizations about the buying of goods as a city government, because in Rotterdam we are organizing the most logistics in our own city, so we have a role as well in that. So what can we do on behavior of tendering? Can we ask, well, we have some tenders now done where we just ask at the end of the tender, you must be zero emission, and it works. It doesn't cost any extra. You just have to have the knowledge and the discussions with the industry, and all kind of things to help develop together. Continuously develop this working on city logistics.
Do you have a specific example to share with us of urban logistics innovation, let's say, that has been developed as part of the Living Lab and that has been deployed now in the city?
Yes, several examples. One of the most predominant the last years is there's two people from an old transport company started a new trucking company, 100% electric. We help them with other organizations, with other transport companies, with other buyers, suppliers to develop that business case. And they are one of our front runners. We have our front runners in the network, and via this network of front runners, they find new buyers and suppliers, so they develop their business going on. And so they deliver full truckloads electric in the city, so the last mile where it's most important for us as a city.
Very good. If we look at it from the perspective of an industrial partner, and Régis, you've been involved and worked also in the Success project, but I suppose from your overall experience, you have been involved in that domain. And let's say in the construction domain, for example, where you have identified, I suppose, let's say urban logistics innovations as part of the Success project. How do you see this being implemented in practice? Do you expect the initiative to come from the industry, or would you expect more support from the urban environment?
I think today it's very important when we are talking about cooperation of the stakeholders. I think there is clearly advantages for all the stakeholders. So we're talking about the municipalities, we're talking about the construction companies. I think it's very important to work all together to, let's say, to work on the same solution and to find common advantages. Let's say for the construction side, clearly today we have a big problem of productivity in the construction field. It's what Francesco presented quickly in the project success. So clearly we need to find solution to renew completely the logistics process in the construction field. So we have identified one solution, it's the Consolidation Center for Construction, CCC, for different reasons. For example, in the big cities, for example in Paris, in all the big projects we have a lack of space, to store materials, so it's a very big constraint, and the CCC can be a solution. For example, to deliver the site just in time. So clearly, today we have some solutions that can bring a good help to improve the performance of the industry of the construction. And at the same time, with this kind of solution, if I give an example, it can be a good way also to reduce, for example, the emissions of pollutants. So for example, if you have one consolidation center, you have only one fleet of trucks. So if you want to have low emission trucks, it's more easy because you need to renew, for example, only one float, maybe 10 trucks. But if you are working in the traditional process, you are working with maybe 50 suppliers. Each supplier has his own fleet, so it will be very complicated and it will take time to renew 50 fleets. So that's why it can be, let's say, it can have a positive impact. So for the private, but also for the public sector.
But
So
since space is a limitation in urban environments, why do you suggest that let's say consolidation centers should be used specifically for the construction industry and not use consolidation centers for other industries as well as a shared resource? Why is this a necessity? Is this something that the cities and the urban environments should and would support?
I think it's the first step, but it will be good also to have an horizontal cooperation because, for example, why not sharing some facilities between the construction field, but also, for example, the automotive or other industrial sectors? Because today we have, it's a new model, so we have to show that it's working. We have some example in London of a consolidation center, but for example, in France, we are starting. We have some new experiences, but we need to show that it's working. And we'll talk later about the cost. You know, is it sustainable financially? And clearly, we need also to see how we can have this kind of cooperation between other sectors. Because if I have one CCC, why not share it with other sectors and not focus only on the construction sector? So I think it's one solution. Knowing that in many cities it's more and more difficult to get some lands near the city center to install these kind of facilities.
May, since you are representing here, as you said, the logistics sector or 3PLs and transportation companies, could you share from your perspective what would you expect? Let's say, to facilitate the collaboration with the other stakeholders in an urban environment for the implementation of such practices?
In our experience, okay.
Yes.
The word cooperation, collaboration with all the stakeholders is the key issue in this case. But what we know with our experience is that each city is different of the others, and not all the solutions can be implemented in all the cities. We are establishing different solutions. We are using, in fact, during the presentation we showed it, we are using our pickup red points as micro hubs too. We are implementing micro hubs too. But of course, this other solution, it's a good solution too. The idea is to use all the options that we can in order to be near of the city center. But another thing that we have to take into account is that all these type of solutions help us to deliver it with eco-friendly vehicles. But when we have if we have eco-friendly vehicles with big autonomy or big load capacity, maybe this type of solutions are not to be so necessary than currently, you know. So one thing that we have to expect is to take a global vision, a global point of view in order to establish a lot of solutions, not only last mile delivery with cyclocargos or by foot, in order to consider all the eco-friendly vehicles, all the type of not only electric vehicles, natural gas vehicles and so on, in order to establish a global policy for the distribution in the city centers.
You mentioned that you implement pickup points. Do you do that as a company on your own, or do you implement these pickup points with other companies in collaboration?
In Spain, we have both models. We have owners shops, and we establish agreement with pickup points with a business in a local market that not only help us to reduce or to increase the efficiency in the delivery, help us to support the local market in the cities. That is another point that we have to consider for this type of things. And of course, we are using lockers too. That it's another option to increase the efficiency and to deliver without less impact in the environment.
Thank you. Ian, since you have a broad perspective in this domain, I'd like to ask you specifically, out of the various stakeholders, what is the pattern? Do you see more the initiative coming for the implementation of urban logistics innovations coming from cities, from industrial partners that have the need, or from logistics partners? Or is it the pressure, let's say, by the citizens and the consumers, as you mentioned before, that is playing more of an acceleration role? What do you think?
I think it basically is coming from the cities, because the cities recognise they need to do something, and it's easier to do something with freight than it is with people movement. So a city that's banned car traffic, anybody want to volunteer for that one? Get that past the politicians, but managing freight feels like it's less of a problem, but then when you get into it, you find out it's probably more difficult. I think it comes from a city perspective. I think somebody has to provide the leadership, as I said, and I think it's easier for the city to provide a leadership. But Tanja made the point, if you're looking for win-win solutions, you'll never find win-win solutions unless you find out what the other person thinks is a win. Because the city knows what it wants to try and achieve, but it needs to engage with those people to get to the root of it. I mean, interesting to hear this collaboration from parcel companies, because often it's that last mile, the last 500 metres, fast 50 foot, where the parcel company feels that's where they're making a difference. But I think it's about leadership can be provided by the city, provided they don't jump to the solution. If they involve the stakeholders, find out what the issues are, then they can make some changes.
No, I thought you wanted to... Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, maybe one thing to add about the collaboration between private and public sectors. For example, if we're considering the public projects, it would be interesting also maybe to involve upstream all the actors of one project. So, for example, the contractors, but also the logistics companies, to find altogether a solution, the best solution for one case. Because sometimes when there is a project, let's say upstream, everything is decided, is planned by the cities, by the client, by the engineering, the architect, and sometimes the construction companies are involved a little bit late. And it's not a good way to, let's say, to build a trust and a transparency between the different actors. So it will be also interesting, as we said, to develop the stakeholder cooperations. It's to involve all the actors as upstream as possible.
So what you're suggesting is that we don't see cooperation and collaboration only between the stakeholders like the city and the industry, the transport, freight companies, etc., but also upstream in the supply chain of actors in a specific sector, etc. Yeah. Tanja, I think you wanted to share some challenges in respect to collaboration between in the implementation, let's say, of urban logistics practices. From your experience, where do you see the bigger challenges in that? In which, let's say, area of collaboration? Between city and specific stakeholders, or among the stakeholders? Or?
Yes, among the stakeholders, it depends on which pilot or... Mm-hmm. We are building a new... one of the new things in Copenhagen, after Novelog, we are going to gather the 20 biggest industrial companies with their own fleets. And they want to having us helping them fulfill their goals in the CSR strategies, because actually they do not know what to do. They have all ambitious goals, I know, on CO2 emissions, but actually the cars or the vans or the trucks are not here yet, and they're awful expensive if they're here. So we are going to make a stakeholder group, a private group, And then, of course, they don't want to have competitors into the same group. They don't want to have customer-clients relations into the same group. And of course, we respect that. Maybe we should build more groups then. We just have to start one up and see how it's go. But, and then they want to have, to make a partnerships agreement with us. We are facilitating it, and that's actually our primary role. But we put 20 stakeholders into a room. They can share their challenges, and they can find the solutions together. And they are going to set up voluntarily goals on what they're going to reach in for the first year or in for the second year and so on the CO2 emissions.
So we could say that today, let's say, we have identified some innovative urban logistics practices in various sectors. We have seen initiatives starting either from cities or from the industry or from the needs of a specific sector, and we have now some nice examples to share. Addressing various collaboration challenges are still there, as you just said.
Customer-client relationship,
so
and you have the competitors and so on.
Exactly.
So that's also why it has been so difficult to have the data.
And I think it was much worse a few years back, but now we start at least seeing some of these activities happening in cooperation and collaboration, which was not the case some years back. I would like to bring up one more challenge. Let's assume we have identified some nice initiatives, either in smaller or bigger groups, and that would, if implemented, would really contribute, let's say, to the environmental sustainability of our cities and the other goals we have set. How can we fund these activities? I mean, we have some nice projects presented here today. 4 of them have been initiated and supported in the beginning by the European Commission and co-funded by the industry. But what if we would like to implement them further? How do we expect the funding for this to come? Any ideas, suggestions? Anyone who would like to? Yeah, Richard? And then Ian?
Yes, it differs, of course, per segment, part of the logistics, also on the maturity of innovation, because the first truck will never be a business case, but if it's developing, it's going on and on. For example, one good example in the Netherlands is our national government made some subsidy for innovation in clean vehicle techniques for logistics, and it helps. We work together with some front runners, transport companies in the Netherlands, to develop a plan for this subsidy, because it helps to get from just that one nice pilot vehicle to maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 vehicles, which is an incredible difficult step for companies. And that kind of subsidies on national or international scale, or even local, if you can afford it, is necessary. And after that, we have to work to some kind of economics of scale, because subsidies will not solve that problem. So what we do in Rotterdam is we work in, as you said, in a supply chain model together with all the actors involved to diverse the risk, to find a business case on a large scale, without a large scale subsidy. Maybe in the beginning, but in the end, it must be running itself.
Ian, you wanted to comment on that as well.
Did you? What I was going to say was that I think it's proven that you don't need to spend millions and millions to achieve some of this stuff. Some of this is about, as I say, it's providing some leadership from the city. It's also about having talked to the stakeholders, understand what is commercially confidential and what isn't. So in the UK, Transport for London managed to get both the 2 biggest supermarkets, Sainsbury's and Tesco's, into a room to talk about retiming deliveries and the issues that they had. And they both continued to work through basically a 3-year project when their biggest rival was in the room with them, because this was not going to actually reveal their commerciality of the situation. It was purely about solving problems they couldn't solve themselves. So some of this is recognizing what that win-win looks like. And some of it is identifying who are the stakeholders who can influence this the most. So, as again, a London example, but working with the business districts to say what happens, working with the Chamber of Commerce. And sometimes this is about pulling the industry together in certain sectors. So why has success been successful? Is because it's working and it's focusing on a very small area. It's not trying to fix the world. It's working with people who all have a shared partnership, I would say, in what the problem is and in making it better, without necessarily revealing all the commercial side. I'm sure the academics, in terms of trying to measure the commercial side of it, have had some nightmares, but anyway.
But you also, I think, imply that they see the benefit working in a focused area, and then seeing the gain out of it, they are also prepared to finance it from the gain they will have in the market.
Well,
is that,
if
or
you
from
take
the cost
something
reduction?
if you take something like the retiming deliveries, they actually save money by retiming deliveries, so it's in their interest to invest in it. But if you like, the big companies invest by having people who are city managers or people looking at sustainable vehicles, and they actually are doing some of that stuff. The city needs to be able to have some staff. If you only have limited funding, use it to get staff in the city who can understand this stuff. Would be my advice.
Yeah. Régis, you wanted to comment on something?
Yes, just another comment about sustainability. Also in the construction field, maybe it's interesting, maybe not to talk only about logistics, but supply chain, to have a wider view. It's, for example, also to work upstream. For example, when we study a new project, maybe to promote local sourcing. Because indeed today we can see some materials coming from, let's say, the other side of the world. So I think it's very important also to anticipate and to have a global view. So we have this part about the sourcing, and we have also another subject that is linked. It's about the economic, circular economy, because the construction sector is producing a lot of waste, a big quantity of waste, and it's also to integrate this activity in the global logistic process. And what we saw in success is that we can use reverse logistics to use, for example, the consolidation center as a place to sort the waste and to work also with different suppliers to find some ways to reuse all those materials. So at the same time, okay, we can create a new activities, let's say a new business, and maybe also to...
But especially developing an urban consolidation center, like you suggest in the Success Project, is one of the most expensive activities, and isn't it? I mean, because it requires land, but also an important investment upfront. So how do you address this, especially in your case, or what are the suggestions there?
This one, it's one of the subject matter that we had in the Success, is to show that a CCC is sustainable, financially sustainable, because indeed we add a new activity that is not existing today. But the big problem that we have, it's what we said before in many presentations, is the lack of data to be able to say, okay, in one project, the cost, the logistics cost, representing, I don't know, it represents 10, 15, 20% of the global cost. Today, we have some difficulties to identify those costs. So it's difficult we tried in Success, we were able to define some costs, and also to define the benefits we can get from a CCC. For example, we can reduce the waste of materials, because we can reduce the quantity of material that is stolen, that is lost, etc., etc. And we can also improve the productivity of the manpower. And in two ways. First, because we have a better organized logistics, but also because in our model, it's to work also with logistics operators. Because today, most of the construction companies are managing their logistics activities, but it's not their main activity, it's not their core activity. So today, as we have a shortage in the construction field, in manpower, it's good to work with, let's say, professional of logistics field.
But since you said logistics operators, and I saw May nodding her head when Ian was talking about competitive companies, competitors collaborating, and actually I can share also with you from the U-turn project that in the beginning 3PL, third-party logistics providers, were not eager to collaborate, but when they saw the benefit, especially the cost reduction coming out of of a practice that came out of the project, that they could collaborate for distribution in the city center, then they totally changed and they were really involved in the pilot. So May, what's your experience in that?
In fact, this is our experience too. In February project, we cooperate with our competitors as UPS or TNT. So we know that we have a problem, a common problem. At least in this first step, the cooperation and the collaborative spirit is necessary. When we get the solution, maybe we have to be a competitors in all the things again. But in this first step, we are cooperating with our competitors, not only in Spain. In fact, in Germany, we have another project at DPD Group where we are cooperating with our competitors again. So maybe only once again to send the message that SEUR and DPD Group is very commitment with this type of solutions, with the smart mobility, urban logistics, and so on. So please take us into account for your project. Maybe this type of projects, not only the project that we show during this meeting, this type of project like Freeview, help us to cooperate. Yes or yes.
Happy to see so organizations being so open to cooperation on this. Tanja, I think you wanted to say something, right?
Yes, just a comment, because I think, Richard, you mentioned the BICET project, huh? Because we as the cities should really look into our procurement tendering process and how the demands for transportation is. And if we use this bargaining power that we have been looking into how much money we are using as a city, and it's 1.5 billion euros. And when we look at what we are buying in all the public sectors and the municipality in Denmark, is 15 billion. If we go together and we say, okay.
So you're
let's find other solutions, maybe more sustainable. Yeah. Maybe in the first term, we can maybe have to pay a little bit more. I don't know. We don't know that yet. But I think we can actually do something with this.
Do I get it right that you are suggesting horizontal collaboration among the cities? Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. We have all our urban sustainable mobility plans. So
I see May wants to make a comment, but I would also like to encourage you. I think we can take 1 or 2 questions from the audience, not more than that, or maybe just one. But May, yes, a quick comment from
only another idea. It's not about urban logistics centers, but for example, in Spain this month, we launched an awareness campaign in order to get the information to the subcontractors, because the delivery in the cities the subcontractors are in charge of the deliveries in the cities, and most of them don't know what is an electric van or a renewable natural gas van, or how to drive it, and how to recharge. So this is an issue, easy initiative that all the cities can deploy in order to transmit the commitment with the sustainable mobility, but in order to make a biggest impact, because in the end we need that these subcontractors knows what are going to happen, the new legislation, the new laws in the city centers, the different type of eco-friendly vehicles, and the impact in their work.
So broader collaboration.
That's yes, what you're collaboration again with the ministry and so on. So.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Maybe. Oh. Maybe we can give it. Here you go.
Thank you. I'm Walter Ploos van Amstel, Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. Heard a lot about the inner cities and the old cities, and it's very difficult to change cities that we built 200-300 years ago. While you see today the biggest growth in like urban freight is actually in the new neighborhoods, with e-commerce, nano stores coming up, very small coffee shops. what can we learn from all the lessons we've had with regard to designing new residential areas? There's often a combination of enjoying, working, active mobility. Oh yeah, and urban freight.
Richard, yes.
Yes, that's a very important question. We in Rotterdam, we probably not gonna make whole new neighborhoods, but we redevelop areas and make it more dense, and that will be the one of the major problems for the next decade. How to make 50,000 new housings for people, because we want to put it in the city instead of outskirts. And I think in Rotterdam at least, most cities have lacked to give enough space to logistics and how to deal with that. And that's one of the most difficult things for the coming decade. Not only the one or two persons working on logistics at the traffic department, but working together with all those peoples and making an integrated solutions for those areas on forehand and not afterwards, where there is a truck on the street, which we never designed to have there. Yeah.
Ian, something from the Olympic Games experience?
So, no. Since then, to be honest. So from, 2008, I was involved in the last mayor's transport strategy and London plan. And while I influenced the current one, I can't claim any credit for it. But in the 8 years between the two land use plans, the amount of industrial land, bearing in mind logistics land is treated as industrial, had declined by 16% in a population which had grown by, I think, another 800,000 in the course of those 8 years. And part of it is recognising within planning and zoning very clearly that logistics needs space within cities, in suburban areas often to literally feed the inner city, but also for developments. So any new large development should first of all have some location within it to accommodate logistics, whether that's off-street delivery, whether it's some sort of consolidation stroke pickup point or whatever. And interestingly, both in the City of London, right in the middle, they're now doing that in planning permission, and in Sydney, they're now doing that in planning permissions. But it should also be, if you're going to develop a whole new neighbourhood, whether that be brownfield or greenfield land, there should be facility which works for the broader part of the city, not just that location. So in the UK, it's within the planning legislation, Section 106 funding can be clawed back for new bus stops and new primary schools and infrastructure for the city. Why not for logistics? Okay. I think that's where we need to go. Interestingly, my list, if you did it for a new city, I'd put land use planning way at the top. Anyway. Okay.
We've been given time for one more final question from the audience. Yeah? Yes, please.
My name is Arnold Burgess, and I have a question for Ian Wainwright. Ian, is there a good mix between push and pull measures? Because we have heard from the different examples here, there's subsidies, but there's also in procurement some possibilities. So instead of reaching the conclusion that every city is unique, is there some general options that or conclusions that you can draw from these examples? What would be the optimal mix?
I think the optimal mix will depend by city. And I think the important thing is for cities to understand and learn from each other what works and what doesn't work. In other cities, very often you only learn about the successes. I don't know, Hans, are you going to talk about the research you did in terms of the failures? Because I think part of it is we never learn from the failures of what doesn't work and why doesn't it work. There's a balance between engaging with people and regulations. There's a balance between having regulations that actually work with each other. So if you're going to try and do off-hour deliveries, are the regulations that says tenancy agreements, ban them. But I think it's about, if you take the panel here, the cities, forget me please forget me. You've got cities, you've got operators, and you've got logistics specialists, and actually those are the people that can tell where the right push and pull balance is. And to be honest, if the operators aren't screaming, the city's probably not gone far enough. But if they are screaming, listen to them. Because there's a reason as to why they're saying it. Don't need to believe it all the time. Apologies, I was an ex-operator. But you need that balance of being able to say, have you actually considered everything?
Okay, so should we keep screaming as the recommendation, suggestion from today's panel? No. I think we've heard many nice comments on how we can see in the future many of these innovative urban logistics practices being integrated more and more in our everyday life. So let's hope that we will see that happening more and more in the future, more cooperation, a bit more screams from the various stakeholders, and ways to fund them, and many innovative business models. Thank you all for being here today, and for our panelists.